What's up, everybody? Welcome to Show and Tell After Dark, where we talk about all things art, all things music, and all things Boston. I am one of your hosts tonight. My name is Cricket Smith. I have my friend to the left. You have your own mic. What's your name?
Tata.
Tonight on this episode, we have the amazing Nieisha Deed. She is the fiercest advocate of mental health. Her mission is to bridge the disparities of mental health in the Black and Brown community and provide resources to those seeking refuge in order to feel healthy and whole. This is her second time on Show and Tell Boston. Nieisha, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for having me back. You know, I wasn't sure if I was going to be invited back after being here the first time, but, you know, I reached out and, I'm happy to be back.
You're always welcome.
Fortunately for you, everyone is always dealing with mental health and everyone's deteriorating.
I'm screaming.
But for those who don't know, and I know she just gave you her introduction, but could you tell us, for those who don't know, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so... Ooh, scary. So that's right. My name is Nieisha Deed. I am from Roxbury, Massachusetts, born and raised. But I didn't go to school out here. I always, say that because I feel like it makes me a little bit different than some Bostonians, Black Bostonians, because I went to school in Sharon. So Sharon's this little town. Anybody familiar with Sharon?
You were
heard of it?
Right?
Mecco, yeah. Okay. So it's a little small town south of Boston. And I was the only Black student in a lot of my classes. I never had a Black teacher. And, that really made an impression on me. And it was why I decided to go to an HBCU after graduating. And I went to the best HBCU in Washington, D.C., Howard University.
Hey.
And yeah, and I loved it. I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm surrounded by love and, people that look like me, people that really care, to see me do well and, having my first Black teacher and like being in class with like everybody in there is Black, it's just like, whoa. But then leaving Howard and then going right back into corporate America, which felt like I was back in Sharon again. And, back to the code switching, back to feeling like I didn't belong. It was just like, okay, I guess this is life. But, those experiences, really shaped me and had an impact on me. I had an impact on my mental health. And I think, people probably, if they listen to the first episode, or not the first episode, but the first interview, they'll know about kind of that whole story. But eventually got me to this point of creating this platform called Pure Spark that's focused on, mental health disparities in our community and really trying to take away the shame that exists from talking around mental health, but also looking a little bit deeper now this year, looking at the structures in place that cause us to have poor mental health. Yeah.
Since the last time you've been on, I feel like your calendar, like even on your website, has completely filled up. You have so many things on there. You've also done a lot of interviews, got some nominations and awards. Can you tell us what you've been up to since the last time we talked?
Yeah, so last year I was here, I want to say it was, we was talking about this like right before we got on camera. It was, I think, maybe like a couple of weeks after Valentine's Day. And I remember it because you all had that big teddy bear that's no longer, R.I.P. the teddy bear.
That got stolen.
Coming for you. Which camera is it?
I don't like ugly.
Coming for you. Yeah, but I remember this big teddy bear being on the couch. And so it was really cold outside. So I remember it was literally been a year since I've been here. And you're right. So much has happened in that time. We've gained a lot of different partnerships. We're working with a lot of different organizations that reach out to us and want to reach the Black community around mental health things. We partnered on a study with Mass General Hospital.
Nice.
We have partnered with GBH on a segment that they do on their morning show around mental health. Been nominated for a couple of things. I can't remember them all, to be honest with you, but yeah, got nominated for, got nominated for a few things. I sit on the executive committee for a suicide prevention organization. Nice. So it is a lot. It's definitely a lot. Like if I was to really sit down and list it all, I'd probably be like, girl, you need to sit down. You need to sit down somewhere. But the hunger, is there, and like sometimes I can't sit down because there's so much work to do. But I'm excited. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about some of the different partnerships that you've been working with and dealing with?
Yeah, so there's the GBH one that I just mentioned. So GBH has this morning show, and they do a segment called Waking Up Well. And so, the calendar is kind of built out for the year, but I partnered with the reporter, and we sat down. Actually, she sat down and came up with like topics for each month. So, February, I think we talked about like dating and loneliness, because that comes up a lot, especially during the holiday, the Valentine's Day holiday, We talked about the connection between mental health and financial well-being. I think this month, the conversation is going to be around environmental anxiety around like the environment that I think a lot of people have with like global warming and like how to kind of like deal with that. And that's kind of cool because I'm going to be going to Harvard to talk about environmental justice and helping us get access to certain green spaces. So really excited about that. But yeah, I mean, I probably should sit down and write it all down because honestly, I cannot remember, can't remember everything.
What is the correlation between having green spaces, mental health, and climate change? What is that like? How does that?
Well, I'll tell you what it means to have access to green space. So one of the things that we do, starting in May. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So starting in May, we do these like what we call wellness walks. And the intention behind it, we wanted to have it in Mattapan because in 2016, shout out to Mattapan. Anybody from Mattapan?
I'm from Mattapan.
Okay, holla, just you by yourself. Okay. No, I love Mattapan. But one of the things in 2016, there was a study, and I can't remember the hospital that did it. I think it was Mass General that did a study and found that basically, like, if you live in Mattapan, your life expectancy is, like, shorter.
I wish I didn't raise my hand then.
Say it again?
I said I wish I didn't raise my hand. Yeah,
that's okay. But that's okay, though, because of that study, Mattapan now has a community health center, and there's, like, more efforts to bring, like, healthier foods out there. So, things are going up for Mattapan. Like, it's not going down. It's getting better. But, one of the things that we decided we wanted to do because of this study was bring out wellness events out towards Mattapan. But I think I kind of missed because we actually went to Blue Hills Reservation, which isn't in Mattapan, but it's out towards that way.
Yeah.
In like Milton area-ish, I guess. I don't know.
Like heading towards Canton.
Yeah, heading towards Canton. And when I started asking people, where are you from? Like, no one there was from Mattapan. I was like, well, dang, what the heck? And, one of the things that we're advocating for when we're talking about environmental justice is having a bus stop
like a shuttle?
there. Well, not a shuttle. There's a bus that goes out there already. I don't know what number it is. But, being able to have that bus that already goes by there stop so that, people can have access to this beautiful space. And I know it sounds very trivial, like, oh, it's just, some trees. But when you go outside and you sit and you're in nature and all you hear are birds chirping and the wind blowing, this does something for you, especially when you're stressed out, so I want more people to have access to that.
Makes sense, especially in a society where we're always like inside, either being on our phones or only involving ourselves with technology.
Exactly.
Overstimulated. Speaking of overstimulated, how connected are the systems, like when it comes to, because you mentioned earlier the correlation between mental health and finances, how connected are the systems and how important is it for people to know how things work so that they can maybe even understand maybe I'm acting this way because I'm stressed, or maybe I'm acting this way because I'm anxious?
Yeah, I mean, the systems impact us greatly. Our environment determines a lot of our mental health. Our genetics determine a good amount of it, but, our environment does as well. And, recently I was thinking about this idea. My family's from the South, African American, and thinking about my ancestors and how you know some of them decided that it was better to not be here.
Yeah.
Right. And then later, a friend sent me this post about how psychologists started looking at suicides based on, African Americans in transit here to this country who died by suicide, right? And so they started to investigate that and try to understand that because of they never seen, like, oh my gosh, so many people. Why are they doing that? Well, slavery, you think people want to sign up for that? No. Yeah. Right? And so if I think about that in today's terms, right, and I think about the systems that are in place, a lot of people don't want to be here for a lot of good reasons. Yeah. I'm not saying do it. Yeah. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But we have to start looking at, why don't people want to be here?
Right. Why?
The why. Get to the root. Like, okay, yes, there's all these different medications and there's all these healing modalities, which I, am somebody who partakes in that. But, if we were to start looking at the root causes and start nipping that stuff in the bud, then we wouldn't have so many people that want to die. Right? Yep. And so that's where I'm starting to shift my focus in the work that I do, is not necessarily putting a Band-Aid on things and saying, woo, 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 like, let me give you a hug. But it's like, what's going on? Like, what's really going on?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you talk about kind of like how people get involved with your organization? Who are the people that are getting involved? Generally speaking, like, who are they? What are they going through? And then how do you actually get involved with your organization?
Yeah. So if you ever checked out our website, people kind of passively will go, either they looked us up on Google and they found us, or they heard about us through, one of our events or like word of mouth. And, normally these are people that are like ready to start healing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Excuse me. And they are people who want to see and talk to somebody that looks like them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? That understands their culture, that maybe speaks their language, that grew up the same way that they did, for very good reasons. One of the things that I talked about before in the past was like, I realized that I was code switching in therapy. And I'm like, gosh, darn it. If you can't be real in therapy, where can you be real? You got to be real in therapy. Like, otherwise, just don't go. There's no point, And so people come to Pure Spark because they know that we are kind of like the Google, or we're becoming the Google, or aspire to be the Google of Black mental wellness in the Boston area.
Yeah, and you guys have events like, I think I was looking at your calendar. I know there was like Black mothers dealing with like trauma loss of maybe like gun violence. Then there was also yoga, and then like a bunch of other things. Like, can you explain your calendar and all the different things you offer?
Yeah, so we're a collaborative. Think of us like a collaborative, right? So basically how the business side of it, how it works is, I'm a person that does a lot of speaking engagements. I'm a person that consults with different organizations. So some of the partners that I mentioned, we consult and they pay a fee. Mm-hmm. But then also for the website, wellness practitioners pay a fee to be listed on the website, because they know if they're listed on our website that they're going to get hits. Like, people are going to reach out to them.
Yeah.
But the events page is something like a little complimentary thing that we do. So we have our own events. We have our Black Wellness Mixer that's for wellness practitioners that we do. We just did it at Northeastern University. It was really great, good turnout. Then we do the wellness walks. Then we have, a back to school event that we do at the Do It Center for high schoolers. We have an event that we're doing with Boston Public Library, a panel discussion of people with lived experience in July, which is Minority Mental Health Month, or BIPOC Mental Health Month. And then we have an event with the Museum of Science that we do in November. So we have our own separate events. But what you were just mentioning and talking about, those are organizations that we find out about their events and we just list them on there. So again, going back to the idea of we want to be the Black Google of mental health. Well, that also includes mental health events. So you can just go to our page if you're not interested in seeing a therapist or, seeing a provider, you can check out an event. We're thinking about all the different ways. We also have a crisis helpline. So if you're somebody who's in crisis and there's more than just 988, there's like an LGBTQ crisis line. There's a thing called Black Line if you're Black and you're going, you know what I mean? So like we list out all those resources there so that it's easy for people to find.
That's amazing. Because it's hard. Like you said, like you need somebody that looks like you in order to be able to communicate that. And sometimes, like I've had a therapist before and she was great, but she wasn't fully able to help me to her capacity because she wasn't fully able to relate to my struggles, So thank you for what you do because it's hard trying to find help and it's hard wanting to be whole and not having the resources in order to be able to do that. We were talking about earlier on the couch, our generation not being afraid to talk about mental health. Because like you said, we're all deteriorating.
Yeah. It gets worse. I think Gen Y is worse than Gen Z, though. Maybe actually, I'm not sure.
What would you say is the biggest question that you have for Gen Z? And do you feel that they are a misunderstood generation?
But we're Gen Y. I'm not going to lie to you.
Gen Y.
We're better than Gen Z.
What is Gen Y? I don't even know.
Gen Y is like millennials.
What age group?
Yeah,
is it my age group? That's me. Oh, that is me. Yes, I'm Gen Y.
We're millennials.
I never call it Y though. I'm like, wait, why? I had to like calculate.
So think of like
Y?
everyone born like after like 2000. That's Gen Z. They're the people that are born with TikTok.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like they don't know what like not internet is. Like we actually played outside as kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Your generation played outside of the skate.
Yeah.
Gen Y.
Oh, so you're also millennial.
I'm millennial, yeah.
Oh, okay.
92,
Why did I think
92.
you were? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
91, 92.
I'm a geriatric, what they call geriatric millennial. That's what they call it. Yeah.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I'm like older.
I've never heard that.
I was born in the 80s.
80s?
Yeah, born in the 80s. Yeah.
I think you're X.
Huh?
I think you're X.
No, I'm not. No. I'm not.
You should say, don't do that. Don't do that.
No.
Oh, no, we
Nobody
won't
wants
do
to be
that.
an X. I got you.
Not X. I'm not X. Definitely millennial. You can look it up. You can Google it right now. But okay, so when we're talking about my generation, what generation are you referring to? Because now I feel like we're all the same generation.
So we're talking about Gen Z. Gen Z is like
okay.
Gen Z is like the kids after us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm 92.
So it would be like the 2000s kids.
Oh, the 2000s kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no hope for them.
Oh no, I think there's hope for them.
I do too.
I thought that was y'all's generation, but no, there's hope for them. And I say that because I feel like that's the generation that's not afraid of stuff, and they were born into a certain situation. Like they're not the ones that created TikTok.
That's
they're
right.
not the ones that created any of this stuff. They were born into it.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
it's not their fault.
Right.
Like whoever created it, we got to look at them and start saying, well, man, this is really having a big impact on
100.
our generation. I think that, social media and having access to all this information could be a good thing and it could be a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's a good thing because back in the day when I was growing up, you had to look at things in an encyclopedia.
That part.
And then the encyclopedias had to get updated every so often because after a while they're outdated, you know? So, or you would have to go to the actual library and do research. And so that took time. And so now, you can literally be like, oh, I have a question, and boom, there's the answer. I think that's great. But then there's also the concern of misinformation.
Oh, yeah.
And oh, okay, well, what is real? What is true? What is false? How do you determine those things? And I think that we all can be educated on that a little bit better. And so, but the thing that makes me a little bit nervous is also how fast things spread now. Like,
Oh man.
like, you know, like when I was a kid in school, like once I left school, it was it. But now, like they're on their phones still, and like, you know, there's you never really get the chance to like leave.
Yeah, you can't recreate yourself. Your past is gonna follow you now.
Yeah, like I'm like, oh gosh, that's so weird.
What do you think about like all these different generations, like how they tie themselves to like social media and how that affects like either say their mental health and wellness?
That's a great question.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think the good thing about social media is having the access to the information, meaning like even in a good way, if I wanted to follow influencers that spoke mostly about mental health, you know, and positive things and, you know, things like that can improve your mental health, right? It depends on how you curate your page. It's really up to you on what you want to see, what you don't want to see. Now you can even block certain words, certain content. It's like it's really in your hands. If you don't want to see something, you don't have to see it.
Yeah.
But then, you know, there might be people that don't necessarily curate their page and they follow certain people that are not good for their mental health, right? And they're talking about toxic things, and then you see it and now you believe it, and now that's your world. If you see nothing but unhealthy relationships on TikTok, now you're thinking every relationship is unhealthy, and you know, so on and so forth. Like it just, those are all your thoughts, you know? So what you see becomes your thoughts, and it has just such a big impact, right?
Yeah.
It just what you see becomes you. Even what you watch on TV, the friends you hang out with. That's why you gotta be careful, you know?
Do you think
that stuff impacts you a lot?
Do you think it was worse for Gen Y because the internet was like so new, so misinformation was like easier spread and taken in, rather than now, like say for Gen Z, if you're born with internet, you kind of know that like you can't just trust everything, or you kind of, or is it not that?
I don't know. For me, I wasn't really as dependent on the internet as I think this generation is. Like I was still going to the library, like even with the internet. Yeah, I was still going to the library.
You went to the library with the internet?
Well, this was like when I was in high school, you know, and it wasn't that great, you know, and then we had like the dial up, and you couldn't be on the phone while you was on the internet at the same time. It was really hectic. So, you know, like you just go to the library, you know. And then in college, like I was reading my textbooks, you know, and stuff like that. So I wasn't really checking for the internet like that, you know, whereas now it's like the main source of information. So back in my generation, when I was growing up and stuff like that, it didn't have that much of an impact on me, you know? Yeah. Like Facebook wasn't created until I was like a senior in college.
When did I get Facebook? I think I got Facebook like freshman year.
2004.
Yeah.
I think I got into it.
Yeah, I graduated in 2005. So, yeah.
Of college?
I graduated.
Yeah.
I got into college in 2011. Sorry, my bad.
Wait.
I'm dead. I'm about to walk off.
Don't talk to him. Talk to me. Talk to me.
You see how you just did me?
No.
We're the same generation, okay? Don't. It's only 5 years later.
I have a good question for you.
Thank you.
So, a real question.
Let's just pull the shade down over here.
Screaming.
Shade.
I've been talking a lot with like superintendents and, you know, advocates for like teenagers and the youth. And I have learned that a lot of these young kids are not going to school. And my mama didn't play about school. Okay, if that was a day you were supposed to be at school, you had to be at school. But I'm learning that there are more kids either not showing up or dropping out early, and this is new information for me. I learned it about like 2 weeks ago. But I'm wondering, what is the correlation between kids not wanting to go to school, kids not wanting to stay in school, and kids just not feeling like they're getting that learning?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what's happening there. I feel the same way. Like, I would have never thought to not go. Like, what am I doing for the day? Where am I going? But there must be a good reason. Yeah. I mean, I almost feel like that's a great question for the teens. Like, you know, to back again, get into that root cause of like, you know, what's going on? Right. A lot of people will say that this current generation is lazy.
Yep.
And I think, well, we have to understand, well, what's the root cause of that? Now we got AI doing everything. Like, because we have so many things that are doing the work for us, it's like, well, why do I have to do any work?
Right.
The AI is going to do it.
Right.
Like, duh.
Right.
You know, so I think as we get smarter in technology, it does have a impact on us where maybe we're like, well, we're not needed as the same way that we were before.
Yeah.
And why do I need to even do anything? Because the technology is going to do it. I don't know. There's so many different reasons.
Can I ask you, since the last time here, and then see you like dived a lot more into your work, how do you feel about how the stigma of like mental health is? I think last time we talked, you had a different you had an opinion where it's not as well accepted. But like, how about now? Like, since you've been in there,
One whole year later.
I'm just asking.
So much time has gone by.
You know?
I think it's probably the same. I mean, here's the thing. Every year, we see more and more suicides that are being, announced, and, specifically within celebrities, right? And people actually talking about it. I remember seeing an interview with, I think her name is Regina King. Is it Regina King? Her son, who died by suicide.
Oh, wow.
And so, she talks about that experience and how she's been able to kind of deal with that, because I think it's been almost a year since her son died by suicide. I think it was in January that he passed away. And so I think we're having more conversations about it. I feel like I definitely wasn't seeing those type of conversations growing up, specifically with people in my community. I will tell you that, and I think that's part of the stigma, right, is that it used to only look like it happened to white people.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like, oh, it's some white people over there. Like, it happens to them. It doesn't happen to us, because that was all that we were seeing on TV, And so I think that it's being spoken about more. We're seeing that mental health really don't care what you look like, how you talk, how you dress. Like, it comes for everybody. And I just think it's one of those things that unfortunately is not getting any better, because we're not getting to the root cause.
That's it. That's the only reason.
Yeah, we're not getting.
That's the real reason.
Right. Yeah. So I'm hoping to be able to start figuring out how do we start addressing that. Yeah.
Right. Like, how can we get to the root cause? Because I feel like getting to the root cause is asking all the right questions, because sometimes you don't. You know how you feel. Sometimes you can't really fully express it. Sometimes you have a person across the table from you that's a little bit more experienced. So from your experience, and maybe some questions that you've been asked or heard in your line of work, what are some questions that people could ask to help people kind of further along and express, or even try to get out the feelings that they have, so that they can heal?
Yeah. Well, I think the whole idea of root cause, and I'll talk a little bit about my own journey and my own experience, because, I think I was able to kind of get to, why am I feeling this? Like, I do not want to exist anymore. And so for people that don't really know a lot of my story and what happened, what I'm talking about, I'll go over it a little bit. So, I talked about how I moved to DC and how I was working in corporate America, and how I felt like I was back in Sharon again, being that like outsider. I was getting paid really well. I was traveling a lot. That same year that I, made the decision to end my life was the same year that I had went to Trinidad, and, was posting pictures on Facebook of me, playing mass, and, people just would have never known that, like, I was just trying to do whatever I could do to stay alive, But yeah, that December of that same year in 2017, I had decided that, life wasn't worth living anymore. I'm over here working all the time, paying bills. You know, like I'm going to a job that I don't even like. Like I do not. I feel not connected to the work that I'm doing, and I feel like this is a room full of creatives and people that do different stuff. So you probably don't know what the heck I'm talking about. But going to a 9 to 5 and working in corporate America drains your soul.
I tried it. It was terrible.
It was terrible. I did it
Yeah.
for 15 years, right?
Crazy, yeah.
And so imagine for 15 years feeling that feeling of like, oh man, this is
adds
drab.
up.
But everybody is telling you in one way or another, either by the words that they say or the words that they don't say, that this is the way to go. And so, you know, I think that when we disconnect from ourselves in that way and we don't listen to our intuition, that's an issue. That's an issue, right? Because after a while, what happened to me from being so disconnected from self, I had developed an issue called catatonia. And you can Google that because they'll not even sound scary.
It does.
Catatonia.
Yeah.
It sounds like a scary,
Like it's gonna wear you out.
it wore me the heck out. It sure did. You know, and so that was tough, but it was a manifestation of me just being so disconnected to self that you know, this diagnosis, which is defined as basically psychosis, where you disconnect, literally disconnect. That's what happened to me. But it was because I wasn't allowing myself to be true and authentic to who I was. And that's really the root. That's like, if I was to say in one word, phrase, like what happens and what caused for me, it was not having spaces and places where I could really show up as me.
That's right.
You know, and as this child who didn't get a chance to do it from 1st grade to 12th grade, but then having that little small chance to, you know, express it and find it some way at Howard University, but then being shut off again, you know, like, oh, there's hope, you know, but then, and always yearning for that. And then eventually now being able to do this work that I love so much. I haven't had any mental health issues.
Catatonia who? Cata who? Cata who?
You know, I haven't had any of those issues since leaving the thing that I believe made me sick. You know, and so I'm thankful for that. I think, you know, another thing is that we need community. As much as people think that, oh, I'm okay by myself. No,
You're not.
We are, especially people of color. We need community. It's
right.
something we thrive for. It's something that our ancestors did. And so, you know, in a culture, an American culture that's so individualistic, you know, I think that's another reason why people are, you know, just struggling 100%. Because we're so alone. And loneliness is a cesspool for depression.
Yes.
You know? Yeah. So those are some of the things that I think are the root causes.
And can you tell us what like healing looks like? Like what does that journey look like? Just not just for you, but also like the people that you serve. Like what does healing look like?
Yeah. I think it looks different for everybody, and I think that we can't compare our healing journeys to one another, because I think a lot of times it's funny, like I'll do these speaking engagements and then somebody will come up to me and be like, okay, well, what medication did you take? How long was you taking that medication?
Really?
Yeah, they be getting all up in my business, but I don't care, because I got no shame in my game. I'd be like, well, actually, I was on lithium for like 3 months, but then I had to get off of it because it started giving me thyroid issues, and now I don't take medication at all. Like, oh, you don't take medication? No, I don't take medication at all. You know what I mean? And so it looks different for everybody. And one of the things that, you know, I think is important to note is that depending on where you are in your journey, you need certain things. For example, right? Like in the beginning, I was suicidal. I was having, you know, thoughts of it. You know, I had this attempt. I needed to be in the hospital because I was a danger to myself, right? And so that was important at that phase. Then as I started to heal, you know, I was able to kind of be released and then go to like group therapy where, again, it's that idea of being in community, you know, the idea of like, you're not alone, which is really helpful, I think, for a lot of people. Some people might not like it, but I enjoyed it. It depends on the group that you're with and stuff like that. And then from that, it was like one-on-one therapy, like every week. And then, to now where, I'm not in therapy, I'm not really seeking therapy at the moment, but my therapy is being outside in nature.
Yeah.
It's doing stuff like this, giving back to my community. It's, the work that I do with Pure Spark. It's the way that I eat, you know what I mean?
Right.
It's certain things that I try to stay away from. Are not partaking in a lot. It's yoga. That's a huge one for me.
Yoga saved my life.
Yeah,
I read that in you said the yoga and
yeah.
Was it meditation too or am I tripping?
Meditation. Yeah. Meditation. But then also there's a time and place for that. Like I didn't go all this week because I was tired. And so I basically wellness for me is giving myself what I need when I need it, and so like if I'm not gonna force myself to go to yoga if I'm tired,
That
like
part.
the rest is primary, it's
That
important.
makes
So
sense.
I'm laying my butt down and I'll see y'all next week. Also meditation, some things depending on where you're at mentally, it's not safe to necessarily do certain things.
That's so true.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's important to like check in with ourselves and see where we're at. And then it takes a little bit of time, but then you can kind of figure out, okay, well, I'm feeling this way. Maybe I need to meditate, or I'm
Right.
feeling this way.
Right.
Maybe I need to go outside. And,
Right.
then you can start to be able to prescribe yourself that way. You know what I'm saying?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
We're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back with some Q&A.
Sounds good. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Alrighty.
All right, everybody, welcome back to our episode with Nieisha Deed. Nieisha Deed, sorry. We're going to start with our question with Cheesy as it relates to mental health. And
Oh no, I wanted to actually ask her a question because she was talking when I was over there. She was talking about how she used other forms of therapy, like going to the park. She said like getting into nature and other things. I wanted you to elaborate on that at first, and then we can go into the hormones thing.
Word.
Okay, great. We'll stay on that because I don't know much about hormones. Sorry,
Okay.
y'all.
All right, let's do that.
But yeah, so I think I was so desperate to heal, I was willing to try anything. Yeah. If people told me that I had to roll around in pig doo-doo to be well, I was willing to do it because the desperation that I was in to feel good, I mean, I was just at my wit's end. I just wanted to feel better. And so there was a couple of things that I tried. This was the time when I was living in Connecticut. I was between DC and Boston and trying to figure out what I was going to do. So I was in Connecticut with some family. And I remember trying acupuncture. Wasn't it for me? Yeah, it didn't
Sounds
really.
scary. I ain't gonna lie.
No, it's not. It's like these little tiny needles.
think
They're
it'll feel
so
good.
tiny. And if you have a good practitioner, they know kind of where to go and how to do it. It really didn't work for me. But again, that's the whole idea of being on a healing journey, is that you're testing things out and seeing what works for you and your body. So I remember doing that. And then how I got into yoga was because actually my therapist suggested it. And she was like, well, have you ever tried it? And I'm like, yeah, but like, I don't understand like how stretching has to do with like depression and like how a downward dog is going to help me with like not being depressed. Like, I don't get why, but I'll do it since you suggested it. And I remember going to a yoga class and feeling like, oh, I have like more space, And one of the things that I learned about healing and wellness is that, our emotions are meant to be processed. They're supposed to like flow through our bodies, right? And a lot of times I was just holding on to certain things and I wasn't allowing certain emotions to be processed. But what yoga did for me, we're so disconnected from our bodies and things that like, it helped me to reconnect to my body, because remember how I talked about the catatonia and being disconnected. So it helped me to reconnect. But then it also helped me to process emotions and things and traumas, things that I mean, like I was able to sit here and talk to y'all about all that stuff because I had the chance to process it all. Like I was just existing. I didn't even know why I was feeling effed up. But I had to really sit down and like process it and be like, oh, wow, like growing up in the MECO program really had me effed up. Like,
for
it
sure.
really did a number on me and my racial identity, and, having to mask all the time and feeling like, okay, well, I gotta, be presentable for the white folks. Like, like all these different things that I was doing, that I saw my parents do, and it was a way of existing in this world. But I say no to that. I'm not gonna do that anymore. Like, I'm gonna show up as me. And so, the healing journey for me is really about kind of figuring out what I need when I need it, and really like testing different things out. But I can say for me now, I'm in a very good place, because I have all these things in my toolbox, and I know how to get access to them when I need them. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
You can go.
You got a question?
Not necessarily a question. I was just I agree with what she was saying about how she found her way of like finding her peace and how to deal with her mental. Because I feel the same way. I had a situation where I was above average in my class, but when you're younger, a lot of adults don't know how to tell a kid's not supposed to be in a certain class, and so they try to make me do all these tests and stuff to see where I was. When I took the IQ test, I was above average, and it was like, okay, if you're above average, why are you not like behaving in class? It's like, but the problem was they wasn't getting to was that I would finish my work before everybody, and I had nothing else to do. You know what I mean? And that's why I was disruptive. Cause I was like, well, you know what I mean? I got time. I got like 30 minutes left for class. I can just fool around. And they wasn't thinking about that. They were just like, oh, no, you disrupt the class.
Right.
Stuff like that. So
Right.
I understood that process because for me, I did try to go into a medical school because my cousin went to Wellesley, and that's a medical school. And my mom was always telling me like about the racial profile. She was like, I'm not gonna put you in schools because it's so far that I don't want to go all the way there to get you if you get in trouble. And I'm like, in my mind, I was a kid. I'm like, why do you think the first thing in my mind I'm getting in trouble? But I guess again, I was young. I didn't understand what the trouble she was talking about and stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely connected to when you was speaking on those experiences, and I like camping a lot as well. So like nature is my woo-saw as well. So definitely yeah, like it made me feel like I was doing something right when I was hearing your experiences, because my mom sometimes at the beginning was the teacher was right, so and not really listened to me. So I went through all these trials and errors because I wasn't being heard, and the teachers are saying, oh, this, and yeah. So I understood that situation when I found my own way how to work on myself that way.
Word.
Yeah,
Thank you
no,
for
and I
sharing that.
think that's an important thing that you bring up. Is that a lot of times, in our community, we don't get the benefit of the doubt, meaning that the assumption is already made that this person is a bad, quote unquote, bad person, especially, young black men. The assumption is already negative, right? And so you don't have that chance to explain yourself, and you don't feel like you're heard. And so when we're talking about root causes, right, and why people are angry and why people are dealing with so much, a lot of it too is because they don't feel like they're being heard or they're being understood. And of course, when you're not understood and you're not heard, that can bring about rage and anger. And I think that people are justified in their anger. Now, the violence and this is another story on how we behave, but some of this anger is justified because of the treatment, and how we're treated in this country. So, yeah, thank you for sharing.
There was come here, just run right here, bro. Just run right here. Yeah, just like run over here. Bodies. What was your question?
Yeah, I wanted to know how you guys found your voice through all that pain and just trying to discover yourself through high school and just being in those predominantly white spaces. Just how were you able to just come out and become who you are I'm seeing today?
That's a great question. Well, so my story, I'm trying to figure out where to even start. So by the time I was 10 years old, I had my first experience with like mental illness. My uncle, my cousin's father passed away from suicide. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and at the time I thought it was just like one of those like one-off incidents, like, oh, that's just the, uncle that's got some stuff going on. Boom. By the time I got to the age of 35, I had lost 4 family members to suicide. And at that point, I was, talk about rage, I was really, really angry. I was angry because, mental illness was coming for so many of my family members. It came from me, my sister, my father, dealing with different things. And so I just got really pissed off, and I think anger is not a bad, I think we always classify anger as like a bad emotion, but it's not, because it can help you, it can give you the passion to go forth with certain things. It's an indicator, it's an indicator that something's wrong. I'm angry because there's something wrong, and so what do I do about that, and so the person that you're seeing here today is because I went through a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, a lot of frustration. And I'm the type of person that says, well, if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to do it. So.
I like that.
That's a good question.
Me personally, I guess like when I was a kid, I didn't actually grow up around that many white people until
Colonizers. Just wait.
Colonizers? Oh. That's vocabulary. That we say vocabulary. But I didn't actually get to experience them until I got into middle school. So it was a totally different experience. Growing up with me, I didn't really want to get bullied on a daily, people, they try to take advantage of you. They try to push you into a hole. They try to take from you. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Just growing up in the hood, you get pushed into the corner, and if you actually outside, that shit feel different. So
you understand how it works.
Yeah. So when I actually got to the age group where I was actually dealing with them, those type of people, well, I'm not trying to say it you know what I mean?
We know what
Not
you
trying
mean.
to say you people.
We know what you mean.
Yeah. I feel you though.
But what I mean when I say that, I mean just outside of my race, because I was dealing with mostly black populated schools until I got into middle school.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I never actually felt somebody was beneath I never felt like somebody was above me or whatever. I never actually got put into that concept. So whenever anybody tried to do anything like that, I just jumped at it, because growing up from where I was, anytime somebody tried to belittle me or anything, it was an attack. It was an attack in my personal space and my personal grounds.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I always looked at those moments, like she said, anger, and for some reason that empowered me. I felt like I was getting stronger from that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And until I got older, I never understood how that felt, why I was feeling like that, and I never understood where I was going to, how I can use that energy in different ways.
It seemed like you went through the actual filter of, what we was pushed or, oppressed towards, you know what I mean? Whereas forcing people of color to be in urban communities, to go to the worst public schools or whatever the case may be, and to not to get the corrected learning. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's one of those situations where ideally you can get pushed and feel like you have nothing left, that nobody there to really be by your side or help you guide you to the next step. Therefore, it's like you're kind of stuck in that cycle that we call it. You know what I mean? Like, and the only way you can try to get out that cycle, avoid that cycle, is through circumstances of some people you're around. You know what I mean? The people you surround yourself with. So I understand where you're coming from, because I moved from a lot of neighborhoods, and I had to so quote unquote survive, because you go from one neighborhood to another one, you're not from there, quote unquote, and it's like, oh yeah, you used to live there, blah, blah. So it got to a point where I had to use my smarts and finesse a little bit so that I can avoid it. Now I can't say I didn't do no dumb stuff when I was younger, but I ain't that guy.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, but that's the play. That's the same play I was on.
yeah.
I was
So I
always
understand.
pushing to be that.
Hold on, Chiefs. Hold on. 1 second. Does anybody else have a question? Y'all good? You good? You got a question, Mos?
The general.
It's not kind of, yeah.
What you want to say, friend?
Be generous with your question.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, no, chill, man. So a little bit about me. I identify as autistic. So growing up, I was always made fun of because of they thought that my intelligence was a little bit delayed. Even as an African too, it's there's a bad stigma behind it. Like my aunties and uncles, they would always talk to me a certain way. But the only people who saw me as a human were like my cousins, my sisters, most of my peers. And when I grew up, my parents they were going through some sort of like divorce, and and everybody knows when your parents are at war, you just stay the fuck out the way. But it's really hard to, especially under a household, and then it's to the point where it's only a single parent household. And then we had to make decisions like, do you want to live with your dad or do you want to live in Boston? So I'm like, all right, I want to live with my dad. I want to, learn how to be a man. I want to learn this, that, third. So going to Florida for 4 years, that was fucking hell. Because it's not like the opportunities here is different. So I had to go to like 3 to 4 different high schools. I lost friends. I had to make more friends. I went to different neighborhoods. I started developing anger issues because I didn't know where all this pain, all this anger was coming from. But maybe it was from just like the household, or it was just the environment. And because that's when I started getting into juvenile activities. I started fighting my dad. Got arrested a few times. I didn't really have a proud past when I was in Florida, and I felt like that only amplified the older I got. I would be triggered by the most simplest things. Now I'm just learning to be more in touch with my abrasive and my peaceful side. So I wanted to ask, have you ever met somebody who was identified as neurodivergent, where if so, what would the advice, what would the best advice would you be able to give them, as far as depression or just dealing with, healing?
I mean, I think we all a little different. What is normal anyway? And I think, sometimes when we're different or when we're stamped as different, people will other us. Oh, you're over there with those people. You know what I mean? You don't belong with us. And I think the bigger question is okay, well, where do I fit in and where do I belong? And no one wants to be in field othered. Right? Being 6'2" and going to a predominantly all white school and being a black woman and you feel that othering as soon as you walk into the door. And I think if I was to go back to that experience, what's important and what's very healing are spaces where you can find community, where you can find that you belong. And so I wish when I was younger, maybe, one of the things that I would have done more of was like activities in the city, in the community, to be around my people and be like, yo, like, we love you. You're here. You belong here. But it took me a while, but eventually going to Howard, I had that experience. So my thought would be to find places where you feel like you belong, where you have community, where you feel loved, because I think that's such an important part of healing, Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna have to wrap it up soon. Our last question for you is like, what are some of the things that Pure Spark is looking to do? The things that you guys offer. I know you have the Perfect Match program. What are some things that you want the audience or everybody to know about Pure Spark?
Well, actually, you know what? I'm glad you asked that. Pure
Spark.
So we have. Remember, I told you about that. Ooh. Y'all go ahead and pass this around. Remember I told you that partnership that we have with Mass General Hospital? Dang, I don't even have the right. Okay, you know what? That's fine. Because y'all can pass this around, take a picture of the little code. Y'all from the current generation, so y'all know. Y'all know how to scan the code with your phone. And basically, one of the things is that when the whole idea of psychology came around, I'll try to make this brief because I know you said this is the last question. I'm guessing we're cutting close to time. Psychologists went different places to find about healing and healing modalities, and then they brought it back to the U.S. and taught it. But they looked at mental health through a white male gaze, and did a lot of studies with white men. And so a lot of the things that psychologists know about and learn is from a white-centered focus. And, one of the things that I'm pushing for and interested in are more studies around us and, things that we specifically deal with. And so this study right here is doing studies specifically on Black folks. And it is a paid study, so you will get money. Everybody like, look, ching, ching. Okay. And so go ahead and take a look at this study. Actually, I have more of them right here. Take a look at this study. The focus group. Yep. And that's when you scan the code, it'll bring you to what they call a rally link because they're trying to rally the troops. You fill out the questions, and then they will determine if you're selected for the focus group. And then,
Awesome.
I hope you all can join it.
Thank you.
We need, I think, 8 more participants. Instagram page, it's lit over there. Very lit. We post a lot of great content over there.
Can people volunteer?
Sure, if you want to, yeah. I try to be honest, I'm not gonna lie, I try to stay away from free labor.
Okay, that's good to know.
Something about free labor, I just feel a little bit about. You know what I'm saying? I like to, be able to pay people for their services. But come out to some of our events.
Right.
Come check us out. Tell a family member about us and the work that we do. Yes, you have a question?
Yeah, because I was looking at the QR code and stuff.
Okay, cool.
I was looking at the who can participate. Is that like the check off so you can participate, or that's just like extra like that people can join?
So if you don't check all the marks there, then you are not able to join the study. Yeah. Yeah.
So question, I don't know if it's personal, but do you have to be an immigrant?
You don't have to be an
Oh,
immigrant.
okay.
No.
I seen it if you identify as a Black African Black immigrant.
Or.
Okay.
Yeah. Not all of the things.
That's what I was okay.
Yeah,
I misread
yeah.
that. I was like, oh damn, I'm trying to do it.
Yeah, thank you. I
I'm about to
appreciate
leave
it.
the country real quick.
Oh no, you're here.
Come back.
No, you're fine.
All right, everybody. Nieisha, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for
today.
having me.
Thank you for creating Pure Spark. Thank you for getting
This is
out
cool.
of corporate. Thank you for following your heart. Thank you for
Thank you.
everything that you do, and
We appreciate
thank you
you.
for
This is amazing for
sharing
Women's
your
Month.
everything.
Right here.
Appreciate you.
All right,
this.
everybody,
Appreciate y'all.
this is our episode with Nieisha Deed from Pure Spark. Woo!
Yes, sir.
Good night, everybody.
617.